This may shock you. 55 countries around the world still practice the death penalty, but they are dramatically different. From Japan's death row that drives inmates insane, to Saudi Arabia's death row that has a dark, evil twist. The first country we have to look at is the USA. The USA hands out many death sentences per year, but surprisingly, it's not even in the top 10. Around 20 people are sentenced to death row every year in the USA. In many states, death row is illegal, and some states don't practice it despite never actually outlawing it. But these 11 states do actively carry out death sentences. Inmates will get these sentences for various crimes, most commonly homicide-related crimes, but also espionage, treason, as well as extreme cases of narcotics trafficking. USA death penalty methods vary state by state, but there are 5 methods used in the USA. These are lethal injection, electric chair, firing squad, gas chamber, and gas asphyxiation. But what actually happens to an inmate on death row in the USA? 24 hours before, they will be taken from their cells and moved to what is cheerfully known as the death house. As they enter the death house, this will be the last time the inmate will ever be outside. They will then be given a full body search and given new clothing. They will then be taken to their new and last cell, known as the Death Watch cell. There, the inmate will spend their final night. Some inmates choose to sleep, but others can't, knowing what's coming. At the 15-hour mark, they will be woken up. They will then shower and be given a regular prison breakfast. At the 14-hour mark, they will be allowed to see their friends and family for one last time. They will also get 45 minutes to make any final phone calls. At the 12-hour mark, all visitations will be cut off. The inmate will then be given a regular prison lunch and are then allowed to see a priest or imam. Inmates carry many regrets and secrets, and this gives them one last chance to confess and have a clear mind. At the 8-hour mark, the inmate will be allowed to see their last sunset. The inmate will then be allowed to write letters for 1 hour, writing their final goodbyes to friends and family. At the 6-hour mark, the inmate will order their last meal. Despite what many think, they can't order whatever they want, instead having to stick to a $30 budget, which with today's prices isn't that much. If the inmates are being executed with an electric chair, they will then have their heads shaved. This is to prevent their hair catching on fire. The inmate will then take their last ever shower, and then eat their last meal. At the 3-hour mark, witnesses arrive. These are the people who are going to watch the execution happen. They're normally relatives of the victim, but sometimes the inmate's family comes too. At the 1-hour mark, the inmate will be walked to what's known as the death chamber, escorted by a team of 5 guards. The inmate will then be strapped to a chair or bed. At the 12-minute mark, the witnesses will be moved into the watching room. The curtains will then be undrawn. The window is one way, meaning the inmate never sees the people watching him. At the 10-minute mark, the inmate gets to say their last words. The inmate will then get one final visit from a priest or imam if they wish.
What makes the American system especially controversial is that executions can take decades to happen. Supporters argue those appeals protect innocent people from wrongful execution, while critics say it drags victims' families through years of emotional torture. And then there's the haunting case of George Stinney, just 14 years old when he was executed in 1944. Decades later, his conviction was overturned due to major concerns about fairness and evidence. Cases like this are exactly why the death penalty remains one of the most divisive legal debates in modern history. So here's the big question. If even one innocent person can be executed, should governments still have the power to carry out death sentences at all?
And after that, the execution will take place. There are currently 2,500 people on death row in the United States. It often takes decades for these executions to be carried out, because inmates are entitled to many appeals. But it wasn't always like this. The USA once executed a 14-year-old boy. George Stinney was accused of taking 2 girls' lives. He was too small to sit on the electric chair, so had to sit on top of a Bible. But since 2005, you now need to be over 18 to be given a death sentence in the USA. America's death row may sound harsh, but I can assure you it's nothing compared to Saudi Arabia's. Every year, Saudi Arabia ends many people's lives, with an average of over 185 executions every year. In Saudi Arabia, people get death sentences for minor crimes, including burglary, treason, espionage, and narcotics. But you can also be given a death sentence for leaving Islam, as well as cheating on your wife or husband, or having a same-gender relationship. You can can even be given a death sentence for witchcraft. Saudi Arabia has 3 execution methods, and they're all wild. The first is firing squad. The second is stoning. This is where someone is buried up to their head in sand. Stones are then thrown at them until they lose their life. And the most common method is beheading. This is done using a scimitar, a large curved sword. Afterwards, bodies are often put on public display to scare everyone else into not committing the same crime. Unlike in the USA, Saudi Arabia dish out executions very fast. But while they wait, they're normally kept in this prison, named Al-Hayr Prison. Inmates are often kept in isolation cells, and are subjected to physical and psychological hell. Inmates are often not allowed to contact their family.
Saudi Arabia's system stands out because of how quickly executions can happen compared to Western countries. In the United States, inmates may spend decades appealing their cases. But here, the process can move incredibly fast, and the range of crimes punishable by death is what shocks many international observers the most. Some punishments are tied directly to strict interpretations of religious law, which creates massive global debate over human rights versus national sovereignty. And the public display aspect? That's designed to send a message of fear and deterrence. Whether people see that as justice or intimidation depends entirely on their perspective. But one thing's undeniable: this is a system built to make examples out of people.
Executions normally happen within the same year someone is sentenced to death row. Another country with a surprisingly nasty death row is Japan. Aside from the USA, Japan is the only democratic country that still has death row, with an average of 5 executions per year. There are only 3 crimes you can commit to get the death penalty: homicide, treason, and crimes against the state. Normally, you need to end multiple lives to be sentenced to death row. In most countries, inmates on death row are told when they're going to lose their lives far in advance, but not in Japan. Instead, inmates are only told 1 or 2 hours before the execution, meaning that they have no idea when will be their last day on Earth. It could be years from now, or it could be in 2 hours. This sometimes makes inmates go insane. To make matters worse, the inmate's family is only told after they've been executed, meaning that they have no chance to say goodbye. While the inmates are on death row, they're kept in very strict prisons, said to be the strictest in the world. They're told exactly how to sit in their cells. They have to always look down at the floor and can never look up. They're also not allowed to speak unless spoken to, and they have to work for over 13 hours per day. But a country with an even worse death row is China. China executes the most people per year, averaging at over 1,000 executions every year. In China, you can be given the death penalty for many crimes, including serious fraud, bombing, flooding, rioting, separatism, rebellion, political dissent, subversion, sneaking people into China, piracy, corruption, aircraft hijacking, espionage, abandoning the military, endangering national security, and many other crimes. In China, no matter how rich or powerful you are, you can be given a death sentence. In 2022, high-up politician Fu Zhuangha was sentenced to death row after taking nearly $17 million in bribes. And in 2014, billionaire businessman Liu Han was also given a death sentence.
Japan's death row system may actually be one of the most psychologically terrifying on this entire list. Think about it. Inmates wake up every morning not knowing whether guards are coming to escort them to breakfast or to their execution. That uncertainty can last for years. Former prison officials and human rights organizations have repeatedly criticized the mental strain this creates, with some inmates reportedly developing severe psychological issues from the constant fear and isolation. And the fact that families only learn about the execution after it's already happened? That detail alone leaves a lot of people stunned. Would you rather know your execution date years in advance? Or live every single day wondering if today is the end?
Being executed 1 year later in 2015. These executions are carried out using either a firing squad or lethal injection. While inmates wait for their execution date, they will be in a Chinese prison, which are known for their very harsh conditions. Inmates sometimes have to work for 16 hours per day. They will also have their heads shaved and have to look down at the ground at all times. But a country with even worse death row conditions is Somalia. Somalia is known as one of the most dangerous countries in the world. It It is the only African country that carries out public executions. These are done either by hanging, firing squad, or stoning. Somalia executes an average of 13 people per year. These sentences are given out for homicide, treason, espionage, and abandoning the military. But you can also get a death sentence for leaving Islam, blasphemy, cheating on your husband or wife, and having a same-gender relationship. While inmates await their execution date, they will be kept in one of Somalia's worst jails, which are known to be very overcrowded and dirty. Death row inmates are normally sent to Mandera prison, said to be Somalia's worst prison. But some would say death row in Belarus is even worse. Belarus is the only country in Europe to still use capital punishment. You can be sent to death row for crimes such as treason, sabotage, and conspiracy to seize power. This is because Belarus is Europe's last dictatorship. While inmates wait for their execution, they will be sent to Belarus's worst prison, which is famous for housing political prisoners. Belarus executes an average of 2 people per year. But a country known for executing far more people is Indonesia. In 2005, Indonesia hit the headlines. This was after 9 Australians were arrested. They were attempting to smuggle narcotics. 6 of them were sentenced to life in prison, but 2 were sent to death row, and in 2015 were executed by firing squad. This caused massive outrage, but many executions still take place in Indonesia, normally for narcotics and piracy. Another country with a surprisingly harsh death row is India. In India, you can be sent to death row for homicide, narcotics, aircraft hijacking, espionage, kidnapping, abandoning the military, and even partaking in human sacrifice. In 2023, India gave out 120 death sentences. These are always done by either hanging or firing squad. Death row inmates are kept in awful prisons. Indian prisons are famous for overcrowding, having over 25 million backlogged cases. The cells are very crowded, dark, and dirty, and inmates are only told their execution date a few days before it happens. But one country you won't be surprised has a terrible death row is North Korea. In North Korea, just about anything can land you on death row. This includes plots against the nation, working with enemy countries, circulating harmful information, political dissidents, visiting foreign websites, watching foreign movies or TV shows, listening to foreign radio, inappropriate words, making international phone calls, watching adult material, and returning to North Korea after defecting. Many high-up North Korean officials have been given a death sentence, including Kim Jong-un's own uncle. The methods used are firing squad, hanging, beheading, and even being shot with a missile. Some of these executions are done in public. In 2022, a 22-year-old man was publicly executed for listening to K-pop. While North Korean inmates are on death row, they are sent to a labor camp. This is where they have to do back-breaking work for sometimes 20 hours per day. Many lose their lives in these camps, but if they survive, they will later be executed by the guards. And to make matters worse, their entire family will be sent to the camps as well. This is to ensure no one ever tries to take power from Kim Jong-un. North Korea executes an average of 150 people per year. Another country famous for its death row is Egypt. Egypt executes an average of 30 people per year. This is done by either firing squad or hanging. While they wait for their last day, people on death row in Egypt are sent to very bad prisons, known for overcrowding and harsh conditions. Another country with a famously bad death row is the United Arab Emirates. This surprises many people as it's a popular tourist destination. But beyond the glitz and glamour of Dubai are some truly awful prisons. This is where death row inmates are kept. You can be given a death sentence for various crimes, including the disposal of nuclear waste and leaving Islam. Executions are carried out by firing squad. Which of these death rows do you think was the worst? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't yet and check out this video next. I think you'll find it very interesting.